Hello, everyone, and welcome to another week of the Supplier Diversity and Small Business Economic Impact Report. As always, thank you so much for checking us out. If you like this series or kind of what we're talking about, feel free to like, share, subscribe, and comment on the video. Now, for today's week, uh, basically the first week or first full week of December, we'll be talking about a couple of things here, um, more specifically pertaining to the new release of the jobs reports that affects small businesses as well as the entire economy in the month of November, as well as kind of give a quick breakdown of wages, and then lastly a couple of things that happen on a global scale that you probably need to be aware of that affects the whole China-U.S. trade relations. So let's go ahead and let's start off with the first piece, as you can see, which is U.S. small business owners optimism reaches new heights. Now, I do want to point out, you know, that this current survey was fielded between November 8th and 14th, just after the midterm elections. So if you remember that, right after the midterm elections, the stock market actually shot up. I think it was like 300 or 400 points. So if the survey was taken at that time, it makes sense why this would be, or why the report or the results would occur in this way, because after the election things still seemed at the time that they're moving in a positive direction. um, I'm not going to get too in depth in this just because over the past week so much has happened. I honestly don't think that, or at the very least I'm not convinced that this is how small businesses are viewing the economy right now. But if this is, but a report is a report, a survey is a survey. And as you can see, when it comes to the early November part, right after the midterm elections, small businesses, in terms of their optimism, reached a new high. And they've got some interesting stats here, but definitely wanted to at the very least kind of start off with this and let you see kind of where everyone was at the beginning of November, leading into where we are now. Now, a couple of key reports have come out by the ADP and the CBIZ, both basically on the same point, which is the whole, let's see, the 46,000, where here it is. So small business accounted for 46,000 of the 155,000 jobs that were basically created in the month of November. So as you can see, 46,000 jobs for small businesses. Or I'm sorry, that's for October. I apologize for that. I'm wondering why they don't have the November numbers up. Let's take a look at this. Yep. So this one's for November, and then this one is for October. They actually wrote that. Huh. Interesting. We found a mistake for the Washington Post. It says 46,000 jobs in October, when in actuality it's small business hiring in November. So they probably need to let's refresh this real quick. See if they made that. Nope, they haven't made that when at first you fell, and then we're talking about 46,000 jobs in October. But yep, so this is actually for November. They should probably make that correction. But yeah, so basically 46,000 jobs. One of the things, so there's a couple things that we need to note about this. The first thing is that the reason why you're seeing kind of a small jump here is because of the tight labor market. And we've gone through this in the past few weeks, months, if you will, about how because of the low um, unemployment rate, uh, right now it's around 3.7%. It's just tougher to find qualified employees. And, oh, excuse me. And and this is just a result of that. Now, I said, I think last week or the week prior, how in the month of November and December you're going to see an uptick in hiring because of the holiday slash seasonal trend. For November, that seems to not have has did not happen in the way I expected it. However, there are projections that are saying, I can't remember if it's either this one uh, or if it's the following one, but also ADP or CBIZ. But one of them just basically talks about how small businesses held off on the whole seasonal hiring, and that's probably going to come into play in December. So For the December time frame, obviously, because you have the Christmas, you just have a long, that week long break, so you're gonna have to pay people to man your small business a little bit extra on that holiday break. So we're definitely gonna see some seasonal hires for sure in this month, and that should again give that hiring a little bit of an uptick versus November. But after that, that's when we kind of move into the standard territory. Now, wow, even though I do want to point out that the key here is the 155,000, and this is for all companies. This isn't just for small businesses. Um, as you can see, the Labor Department on Friday reported that 155,000. So today, new jobs in November, down from 237 new jobs in October, but still strong by historical standards. I do want to point out that the estimated number of jobs that were supposed to be added for America was around the 190,000 mark. So this did come under that mark. However, where is it? Average hourly earnings went up 3.1%, which is incredibly high. As you can see, it's the largest single month rise since 2009. So kind of, good news in terms of the wage growth growing, bad news in terms of the amount of jobs that were created. Now, I'm not gonna we'll see what happens in the long term and see how this continues. I don't want to make any speculations, but as we do know about, you know, there are companies releasing statements about how it's going to be at some large turnover in going into next year. I'm wondering if just wondering out loud if this is a trend of potential things to come where we see rate wages rise, but we do see a cutoff on hiring new employees. So I'm curious as to how this goes over the next 6 months. Something that I'll probably be taking a closer look at, but something that I wanted to mention on today's podcast. Next up, and this is what I spoke about previously, and something that basically came out of left field, and and now we're all dealing with it. So if you're unaware, in the past 2 days, so today's December 7th, so December 6th and December 7th, uh, the Dow Jones specifically, and I'm not a fan of quoting it, but because of the huge drop, I just need to mention it. Over the past 2 days, the Dow Jones, as of I want to say like an hour ago, so 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Dow Jones had dropped about 1,400 points in 2 days, which is massive. Now, the better indicator is probably the S&P 500 when you're talking about how the global markets are doing, but the Dow Jones is just kind of like the flashy um, number, if you will. So right now it's down 1,400, or it was about an hour ago. And the reason being is because, as you can see, China trade tensions have risen in the past 2 days. And the key reason for this is uh, Huawei. I believe that's how you pronounce the company name. So if you're unaware of them, they're actually a tech company that I know they sell cell phones, but they also do some other things when it comes to technology as well. They're a really big and well-respected company in China, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, when it comes to the tech sector. Uh, and apparently, as you can see, the CFO of Huawei was arrested in Canada um, for they were arrested in Canada, and the plan is to have them extradited to the United States, which is amazing. Now, if you have the time, I would definitely suggest reading this article because it really talks about the company and how ingrained or it is with China and Chinese culture, and how the citizens really perceive the company as basically being a reflection of China. So the fact that the CFO was arrested. And I mean, it's you can just read through the article. It's amazing because they've got quotes in here where Chinese citizens are saying we don't care what she did, because her name is Miss Ming, the CFO. She's the daughter of the founder of Huawei. According to the article, she is also most likely going to be the next in line for like CEO to take over the company. But it's just amazing how the citizens are just like, hey, we don't care what she did. She shouldn't have been arrested. Um, and it also talks about how there's this big movement, not movement, if you will, but there has been suspicions for a long time of, in terms of the wealthy Chinese, um, and how they perceive America to be blocking the evolution, or the rise of China. This just kind of backs it. It also talks about how they are now pushing President Xi right here to do something about this. So publicly he hasn't said anything as of yet, but because of this obviously is adding friction to the relationship between China and the U.S. There are citizens in China that are now trying to push for a boycott of American products, all American products, which, I mean, let's see how see how far that goes. Similar to if America's tried to boycott Chinese products in America, like let's see how far that goes. But that's kind of what's going on there, and at the very least, it's tensions have risen even more, and the result of that has been a huge drop in the stock market. Now, there's a lot of moving parts here. I mean, we all know, or I presented last week about how President Trump and President Xi agreed to not raise tariffs anymore until, at least at the very least until the end of the year, while they're still negotiating an agreement in terms of their trade policies. But this just kind of puts a little wrench into both people's plans. As of right now, today, the CFO is in custody of the Canadians, and the plan is to have her extradited to the United States. What happens in the next week, who knows? I can't tell the future, but that's just where we are now, and because of that, everything's uncertainty is never good for the markets, and this is extremely uncertain in terms of what's going to happen next. So we'll see what happens. Uh, but just to wrap it up here, in terms of that, we talked about the small businesses and obviously the jobs that were added. A little bit on the low mark. However, wages are rising, which is always a good thing, and the trade tensions are rising, unfortunately, as well. So we'll see what happens. I've always been a pretty big advocate of just explaining, especially if you're getting some for products overseas, in particular for from China. I mean, it's something that you definitely have to watch extremely closely, because this just seems to be getting worse before it's getting better. So watch that, as well as the economy as a whole. It does seem to be some pullback. I did read an article. I didn't present it, but I did read an article where, like, and I've talked about this before, but the whole 2019, 2020 pullback is expected to be, or to happen during that time frame. So definitely take a look at that. Keep an eye out for that. Probably going to talk about in sometime next year, just kind of as we're moving forward, and if it seems to be coming closer and closer, just maybe some ways to, or some things you can do, or that we can do, to kind of support each other in that piece as we're moving forward. But we'll see how that goes. But as always, thank you for your time. Thank you for checking us out. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Again, like the video, and as always, share it with any of your coworkers, family, friends, or people you don't even know. So, with that being said, thank you again, and have a great day.